What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Surf and Sales podcast. We are rapidly approaching historic episode 400, I think is what Richard just informed me. We don't actually know the exact number off the top of our head because that would be way too precise for us, wouldn't it, Richard?
It would be. Usually I'm the precise one. The fact that you even asked me the question was interesting to begin with. So
yeah, I'm big on attention to detail right now, Richard. This is a big focus of mine, really digging into the metrics and all this kind of thing.
Yes, No, you're not. You've always been that way. You just find some ops person to do it for you. That's the only reason you keep me around. Because I'm
obsessed with metrics as long as I'm not the one who has to go get them. That's where my obsession dies.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, if you are new to the show, I'm Scott Leese, one of the co-founders of the Surf and Sales Summit, and that is Richard Harris, the other co-founder of the Surf and Sales Summit. We have an event coming up November 27th to December 1st. That is for any first-time attendees, and we have an alumni-only event coming up December 2nd through December 6th of this year. Check it out at surfandsales.com. Richard is going to introduce our wonderful sponsor, and then we're going to get to talking a little bit about sales, a little bit about entrepreneurship, a little bit about sports with Matt Wolf, who's the founder of Ticket Time Machine. Richard, tell everybody about our wonderful sponsor.
Yes, we are really appreciative and grateful to HubSpot for putting us on the HubSpot podcast network, as well as the HubSpot YouTube network. They're now taking our episodes and putting them up on YouTube. You can find them there. We appreciate all they're doing to support us and Surf and Sales and just the sales community at large. It is June of 2023. We're going to talk about what's happening in September in Boston, in person, live, real people, human-to-human contact, September 5th through the 8th. That is Inbound. That's HubSpot's Inbound, where they bring together all the leaders across sales and marketing and customer success and ops. And they're going to be talking about, I don't know, anything in the marketing sales world. I'm pretty sure AI will be a topic. I mean, I haven't seen an agenda, but I'd be shocked if it wasn't. So, and of course, HubSpot's got some of their own AI tools built into their system. So if you haven't checked those out, you should. And of course, some of these people will be there as well. Morgan DeBon, Kim Scott, Ramesh Shah, Yamini Rangan, Derek Jeter, and Reese Witherspoon. Yes, some Series A celebrity A-list. That's the word I'm looking for. A-list.
Here's the thing I noticed about getting old, Richard, is that the people who are celebrities, you start to not know who they are. I only know like the last two names on that list, really. You know?
I agree, but that's why people should go, because maybe we should listen to somebody different than we normally listen.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Well, thanks to HubSpot. Thanks, Richard, for the introduction. Matt Wolf, founder of Ticket Time Machine. How you doing, man? Welcome to the show.
I'm doing great. Glad to be here. I love talking about sales, and I know go against the grain a little bit.
I love that. Let's tell everybody a little bit about Ticket Time Machine and what your sales environment, sales process is like, so people have some context for who they're listening to.
I started Ticket Time Machine. I was at a game. Edinson Volquez throws a no-hitter. They didn't have printed tickets. It was digital, and they announced over the loudspeaker, if you want a ticket, come to the box office. So I did, because I collect these things. I collect a lot of stuff. And I went up and I said, can you put Edinson Volquez no-hitter on there? They said that they couldn't. I know that they can because of my background in the ticketing world, that they just didn't want to. And that's where Ticket Time Machine was born. We're keeping the printed memory alive with our physical keepsakes. And we've added some digital experiences with some amazing tech partners. And it's commemorative. We can do for admission, but 9 out of 10 people don't do that. It's, we've done prom and 8th grade dances and conferences and sporting events and music festivals, weddings, just anyone who wants to commemorate something with a physical keepsake. We have a lot of different options for them.
What do you find most interesting about selling technology solutions to folks not from the technology industry?
Yeah, well, I mean, I find it difficult because I'm actually not a tech guy. I've sold technology. I've sold SaaS, anti-money laundering solutions, but but I'm really just using the tech as an added value. And so I rely a lot on my partners to help me sell that technology onto it. And most of my sales is concentrated on the physical keepsake.
Mm-hmm. You talked about relying on partners. That this is becoming more and more prevalent. This idea of partner selling, partner ecosystems, and whatnot. What is that world like for you? How does that process yield successful results for you?
Well, I think no matter who you are and what you're doing, you have to surround yourself with the right people. And for me, I'm the only one here at Ticket Time Machine. I need help in a lot of areas. So part of the partnering is, look, what I'm not good at, I find the other people who are good at that. And the true partnership, in the sales, sales is a dirty word. Sponsorship's a dirty word. They like to use the word partner instead of sponsor. I'm talking about true partnership where I'm investing stuff, time, resources. They're investing. We put something out in the world and we share in whatever happens there. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for me to partner in a lot of different ways. And to me, you partner with the people who are good at what they do and leverage, their assets and their intellect and their people. And I find that people can leverage the same here. We have conversations where people have licensing and we have unique assets that they can use. And so that's the type of partnership we're looking for. Because for me to go out and get licensing on my own, it just doesn't make any sense for a lot of different reasons.
And is you're trying to, obviously you want to align yourself with like the right people, but there's got to be a way to hit the bullseye on that a little more, at least more often than not. So as you're looking at partners, having these conversations and dialogues, is there certain red flags that you're listening for, that you're hoping, well, I hope, this doesn't come up. This is a bad sign. This person might be a nightmare to work with, not a good partner, not do equal amount of work. How do you vet these people on the partner side?
Yeah, I think, and I've had to change partners. I've had partners to start that I'm no longer partnered with. The type of interactions you have with them, I think really can tell how fast does someone get back to you, how do they communicate with you? Because if they're not going to act a certain way and react and communicate with you, I would assume that's the best they're going to do. So how are they going to do with your consumers or other people that you're trying to work with? But I have complete confidence in the people that I partner with once I'm sharing them with the outside world and other people. So I don't really bring them into any conversation until I know that I can rely on them, because I'm putting my reputation on the line in a little bit. Some things you don't know, but I think there's certain things like not replying to emails, asking someone for something with even like a soft deadline, but they don't get it to you in time. Those are the sort of things for me.
Have you ever had partnerships for nobody's fault? They just go sour, right? Like you had a good partnership, things did work, and then it's time to have this sort of business conversation of like, hey, this doesn't seem to be working out. Has that occurred for you yet?
It hasn't happened with someone that I still wanted to move forward with. Mm-hmm. But my friend and I we did invest in a virtual world, and it was fraud. This guy took almost $500,000 from his own family and probably could have vetted it a little bit more, but there was all the signs were pointing to it should have been okay. And it was kind of felt like a Ponzi scheme, or like robbing Peter to pay Paul. But the crazy thing is the guy had the resources to actually do what we wanted, and we had an infrastructure that would have been successful for him. So it was a real head scratcher. But no, I think, I'm being able to make all the decisions on my own. I like to get creative, and I don't think that there's a lot of things that we can't overcome. Like you talk about, how do we split up the money? We'll find a way to make it worth it, because I think for me, it has to be a win-win-win-win. So that's a win for me, a win for the partner, a win for like the team or the league or the venue or the event I'm working with, and a win for the fan. And I see no reason why we can't make that happen. You kind of laugh at the pros, like the bargaining, right? I mean, like, woe is me. How are we going to split up $1 billion? Right? It's just the money's there. You just got to find the creative way to do it, and then you have to find the people who have the vision and the are risk averse. And then there's some people who say, look, if it's not going to make me X amount, we're not even going to touch it. So we move on.
Got it. Makes sense. What were your biggest hurdles? Like, did you have, once you decided to do this? Well, let me ask it this way. So you discovered this little niche, this pain that exists. Did you have to spend time convincing yourself to go do this, or was it a no-brainer for you? And what were you doing before that? Like, what were you doing for a living before you decided this?
Yeah, so I'll answer the last one. It was a no-brainer for me. And I was working for LexisNexis Risk Solutions, selling anti-money laundering solutions. And for a while, I actually was doing both. The question you asked is a great question. What was the roadblock? For this, there were zero, because over the course of my life, I had probably 8 to 10 ideas that I thought were great, and I'm going to do this, and this is going to be awesome. And then I hit that first roadblock, and I was like, I can't do this. I kept telling myself, making excuses. And this time I just said, you know what? This is it. And I don't care what the roadblock is. I'm going to go right through it. And I think that's the big, like, we can't get out of our own way for so much things. Just the Nike slogan, just do it. That's the greatest slogan in the history of the world, because once you start to do it, you'll find that there's very few roadblocks that you can't get.
What were some of your roadblocks early on?
I'm lazy. That was probably the biggest one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Selfish with my time.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was probably a little bit of can I do this? But I'm pretty confident in everything I do.
Yeah.
So it wasn't huge, but it just, any little roadblock would have been like, oh, we got to get police, security to help with this. And how am I going to do that? And if you make one call and it doesn't work, now let's move on to the next thing.
Yeah. So talk about that laziness, right? That sounds a little familiar for me. What did you finally do to kind of kick yourself in the butt to go, okay, you do have to go for it?
Well, I was so unhappy at work. That's the first thing. And it was a classic case of selling more and making less, because they keep changing. I know Scott will love this, keep changing the comp plans on you and the magic quota. And, I got Circle of Excellence 3 years in a row, which is unheard of, but it's kind of just the nature of the beast. I got a little bit lucky the first year, but worked hard toward it. And then they made it so I can't make COE. And there was there's no point. Like, if you can't do it and in January you're done, like, what am I doing here? So that was the biggest thing, like finding a way. I don't like people telling me what to do. And so that's it. I just said, I'm going to do this. I had huge passion and belief in it, because I'm a collector. I'm a fan. They took printed tickets away from me, and I want to find a way to make it happen. And I know they can. It was just, look, they went digital for 2 reasons. One, it's cheaper for them, but the main reason they did it is data. They want to collect the data. And anyone who tells you anything else is lie. COVID was a scapegoat. There's nothing different between scanning your phone and not touching me and scanning a ticket and not touching, or scan. So that's it. And, and people were doing it. The Toronto Blue Jays opened up the Sky Dome and had a commemorative ticket for it. That's 30 something years ago.
Do you have tickets that you've saved, Richard?
No, I was never that guy. In hindsight, I wish I had, but I have some friends back home, and they've got, the 1987 REM concert, tickets. How about you? Do you have a bunch?
Well, I used to have a ton. I don't know where they are, but I have one that is on display in my office.
I can't read it.
Can't read it, but what is that?
There Buffalo Bills,
the
Giants, Washington
Nationals in 07.
What do you think was happening there?
Was that the earthquake game?
No. That's
Earlier,
that's the game Barry Bonds broke the home run record.
I think I was at that game too, actually, now that you mention it. So
Yeah,
So
you
that
might have
ticket
won.
is worth, I know it's probably worth more to you, but it's worth a lot of money. There's a whole community of it that my friend, I can for a different day, but this is a Justin Fields debut. He happened to just get on the field once, and my friend just sold it for $750.
Oh my goodness.
there you go, Scott.
So imagine
I
what
had
you're
no
buying.
idea. Hey, if things get dire enough, at least I can try to move some of my old ticket stubs.
I've got
Thousands of
a bunch old
dollars for
baseball
that
cards.
bonds. Easy.
Yeah.
That's great. So now that you sort of got through this laziness, do you think, in hindsight, looking back at the other 8 ideas, was it lazy or you weren't passionate enough, or is that the same thing? Or were they bad ideas? Maybe you're like now.
No, I think
like,
a couple
they
were
bad.
very good ideas. I also think maybe I wasn't ready.
Fair
I
enough.
mean, who I am today is much different than who I was 10 years ago from even just from a working point of view, an employee, a salesperson, maybe even a human being, all of that stuff. So I think that's part of it. But I mean, this feels like, if you talk about the perfect thing for me, this feels like it. And it did from the start. And I'm a very calm person and monotone in a lot of ways. But when I talk about this stuff, you can tell, you hear me talking about a lot of other things. It's just night and day.
Yeah. What would you have told yourself? I hate this question, but I'm going to ask it. Now that you actually have a better question. What was the moment you were full-time LexisNexis? You started this as the side hustle, sounds like, right? You were sort of doing both, right?
No, I was full-time Lexus. Yeah.
So how long did it take you before you finally cut the cord?
I think it was a year. So what happened is it was approaching the end of 2019. And I said, I got to go all in on this because could I steal a paycheck? I guess I could, but I wasn't making me happy. And it's just hard to do this without being able to set calls in the middle of the day and go to events and having to lie about what I'm doing and block off stuff on my calendar. It wasn't for me. So I went to my boss and I said, look, I have this company I started. I want to go all in on it. I'll give you whatever you want, 3 months. I'll finish it off. And so the end of 2019, I said April 1, 2020 is going to be my last day. Fast forward, I got married on leap day of 2020, and everyone knows what happened the week after that. COVID hit, and now COVID hits. I'm out of a paycheck, and I'm selling tickets to events that aren't happening. And it's probably the best thing that ever could have happened because I wasn't ready to sell to anyone. I'm still building my brand and understanding what we're doing. So the COVID year gave me an opportunity to talk to people, and everyone would talk to you, right? I mean, nobody didn't talk to you.
Yeah, it's true. Nobody had anything to do. So everybody was like, yeah, sure, I'd be happy to talk to you. Just to have some interaction.
Yeah, it was
now that we're a few years removed from it and the economy and everything, it's tough out there. Nobody wants to talk to you.
Well,
it's almost impossible to get people.
I'm the type of person I'm about as accessible a person as you'll ever meet. I'll give everyone my time, assuming it makes sense. There's things that just don't make sense, and I don't mind being pitched to, because I live my life in for me, the golden rule. That's how I live. And I was talking to my friend the other day about, like, when I have all these employees, they're going to love working for me because I'm going to have to give them exactly all the things I bitched about not getting when I was working, right?
Yeah, otherwise you're like a horrible hypocrite, right?
Yeah. And look, I guess if you have to, business-wise, you'll be a hypocrite. We all are, if you want to get into the golf conversation. But that's the way it's going to be. And so I don't, if I'm expecting that it's okay for me to pitch you, and I'm not talking about the stuff we get that is spam. I'm talking about, hey, this makes sense. Let's have a conversation. Then I would be like, yeah, you can do that.
Yeah, that's what I say too. I always tell people I respond to every message I get on LinkedIn, every single DM. that isn't spam. Everyone that's not trying to get me to hire developers in the Ukraine or franchise out a Chick-fil-A, all those ones I'm not responding to. But anything else that's legit, I'm going to respond, offer my 2 cents, or, answer a question for somebody, or, say, well, yeah, I actually do know Matt. I might be able to make an introduction if that's what you're looking for, or whatever the request is. I try to be pretty accessible as well.
Do you ever give them sales tips on how they could have better written to you?
Very rarely. Very rarely.
I do that sometimes.
What do you find yourself telling them more often than not?
It just depends. It's more.
Are you like rewriting their emails for them or something?
No, I'm just saying, you probably would have been better saying this instead of that, or this is obviously automated. I don't care if it was intentional or not, or
I could see Richard behaving that way.
I also get on a phone or an email.
I could see Richard getting him a cold email or DM from somebody and rewriting the whole thing and sending it back to the person saying, this is what a proper message would have looked like. Have you ever done that, Richard?
I'm just going to let you believe what you want to believe. I'm going to pull Scott Leese.
Well, here's the thing about that.
Well, you can believe whatever you want. It's okay.
Here's the thing about that. I'm not telling him what I think would be a great email. I'm telling him what I think would have worked better on me, how you would have been able to engage with me better, which is different than how you engage with Scott, which is different than how you engage with Richard.
Yes.
Right. The other thing that I get, I'm curious if you guys get, is I'm not going to pitch you, whether it's on an email or a call. And I go, well, why not? You have me. You might never get me again. You've already written to me. I'd rather you pitch me than tell me you're not going to pitch me, because everyone knows you're pitching me anyway.
Everyone knows you eventually want to pitch me. So
right.
Let's just get right to the point quicker.
Yeah. So the answer to that question is, Scott, and I'll tell you why it happens. Your good friend Tony Marshall noticed it. I think he was the one who said this, but I have, particularly on my phone, I've put in some shortcuts. Like I can shortcut something that says, I just type in 30K and it has an automated message that'll drop in, and then I can just hit send for certain people. And then if they catch me on an interesting day, I might respond. My biggest problem is that I get angry about it, so I want to take it out on someone when I can't. And Tony Marshall once told me that I'm what's known as a last replier. I'm the one who wants to be the last.
You always have the last word.
Yes. And so like people will say, thank you. So I turn around and write, you're welcome. Because I think that's the appropriate thing to do. And then they might turn around, yeah, no worries. Have a good weekend. And then I got to go, you too. So it's just like,
I hate that because I collect it. I save every email. It goes right into a folder.
Yeah. Oh, I have every email too. It's ridiculous.
I got to look at thank you. You're welcome. Have a great weekend. You too.
Right. Yeah. So that's part of it, is how I'm wired. Scott, do you even say you're welcome if someone says thank you? I think not.
Come on. Of course I do.
Well, difference between saying it and writing it in an email.
Yes. I'm not making a point to be the last texter though. Yeah. This is a level of neuroses that I don't possess.
Yeah, that's my neurosis.
We got to take a short break and do the mid-roll, I believe, as they call it. Richard, this is your cue.
Yep. You're going to have to do one of these soon, buddy. I'm going to make you do
Monday.
But let's talk about our good friend John Barrow's Make It Happen Monday, also part of the HubSpot podcast network. Make It Happen Monday gives you very actionable insights and sales tips to close more business, be better at prospecting. And John brings on a great number of leaders, and including people like Valerie Fridlin, John and Valerie, who's the author of the University of Nevada at Reno. She's an author and professor to explore the impact of language on our everyday lives, right? Which is really interesting because in sales, that's what we do. It's all about communication. Words matter and choosing those words. And so that episode, they really dive deep on it, on literally linguistic techniques that we can use that give us a little bit more power and purpose and thoughtful intent. So if you haven't checked out Make It Happen Mondays with John Barrows, please do. And tell him we sent you, because he's a good friend of ours. Scott, back to you in the studio.
You've just become so good at the commercials. I think the people would never want to take that away from you. Never. Matt, it's kind of a difficult year. There's all sorts of data that says, 18% of people are hitting quota and things like that right now. What are some of the strategies that you're deploying that are working, and are they different than they were a year or two ago?
I've shortened my my pipeline to only things that I think have I don't have a metric for this, but things that I think could happen, in the short term, right? Lower hanging fruit. So I in Salesforce, I would have like hundreds of tasks to do. And I'm like, I'm not going to sit here and go through this. And I've already contacted them twice. So I've been pushing things down that I think are just, I don't know, probably not as a good use of my time. That's the biggest thing that I've done to change, and then hopefully have better conversations, and whatever I am reaching out to, it at least feels like there's a better chance that it could happen. But I have for me, it's unique because I'm the only one making sales calls and doing everything. So sales and business development and customer service and all of that. So I've never been in an environment when I was like a segment of the sales process. I was always the whole sales process. And I prefer it that way. I know, when I was joining Thursday Night Sales, you hear all these different types of salespeople, and the closer and I never experienced any of that. So I kind of have everything from the start to the finish.
Yeah. Do you think some of these roles will survive moving forward that were created?
Well, I can only talk to myself. I would only hire someone to do everything. I wouldn't hire a closer. I think it's important for continuity when you're talking, and then that might be just for, my industry, right? It might be different for others, but think about the process.
I don't know. I mean, the full cycle account executive is maybe making a little bit of a comeback. There's more people.
That's for me. That's all. That's the only option. Think about
that's all I did too.
Yeah. Think about the feeling you're in a car dealership. Like you're talking to a guy who has no power, can't do anything. Like, why am I talking to you?
Yeah. Well, or you just get passed from one person to the next. Yeah. And you're sort of like, what's going on over here?
I got this email. There's a new phenomenon where I get an email, and then literally 5 minutes later I get, oh, you probably heard from Jim. I wanted to follow up on this. I'm like, it's 10 minutes. Like, first of all, it's terrible to do anyway, but it's 10 minutes. Who took it and read your email and then is, oh yeah, now that you're more important, I guess I'll talk to you.
What is it that you like about full cycle, right? Being your only person to run your prospect. What do you like about that?
Well, I like to control my own destiny. That's the part of the reason why I like working for myself. I like knowing, being able to identify where I could do better for myself, because I have a real good accounting with emails and the way I enter stuff in Salesforce to understand exactly what's happening. And I treat my Salesforce in a way that if I had to give someone all my stuff, they would know exactly what's going on with all of the stuff and they can follow it. So,
man, he's like the opposite of me from a solopreneur standpoint, Richard.
Totally agree. I was just going to say the same thing. Like, see, he's a one-man operation too. He and I both have CRMs. So Scott still just runs in Excel.
Yeah,
that's for me. It's for me also.
So how do you, I want to ask this because we don't ask a lot. So if you really like full cycle, how do you manage your time? I think that could be my challenge with it was, and I did do it for many years, but it just became a time thing. And for a guy like me with ADHD, it's hard for me to commit. Sometimes it's hard for me to commit 15 minutes to anything. How do you break up your time around that?
Yeah, so that part of that has to do with what I just said, where I've pushed stuff off further that I think are just, it's not a great use of my time. So I have Salesforce that gives me my tasks that I got to do every day, and I can easily just click it to another day. I have a list every day that I make of what's important for me to handle, jobs that I'm working on, who I definitely need to get to today, and things that I need to work on even outside of sales, like marketing and promotion material, and setting up for events and travel that I have. I'm very good at time management. I think there's enough time to do everything. And it's, the way I organize my email, my CRM, it helps. I try and operate. Well, I used to operate at a zero inbox. And then it got, I have stuff that's there, but I've read everything. I have no read on my phone, if that makes any sense. I don't have anything that hasn't been seen. So, everything takes care of it. I multitask. I know some people tell you not to, but I think
if you don't get a reply from Matt, Richard, it means he's left you on red. That's what he's saying.
That's okay.
If you don't get a reply from me, something happened, because I reply to 99% of everything I get. And it's just, it's one of the reasons why I expect so much from people. And
because you prioritize responding to people one way or the other. And so you're hoping for that.
I think it's the most important thing.
Reciprocation. Yeah.
How fast can you communicate with someone, and how good can you communicate? Yeah. I think that's one of the most important things in sales. And that's not even sales. That's customer service. That's just, to me, it's common sense.
Well, you're in the minority.
I'm in the minority about a lot of things, but I'll tell you what, I'm going to prove that it can be successful. And
I agree it's successful. I'm like you in that regard. I'm in the minority as well.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
I get frustrated by it. I'm not going to lie.
I take everything personally.
This is an area that all three of us could improve upon. Not taking everything as personally.
But why do I care if Scott does this to everyone? How does that make me feel better?
I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. Richard.
I don't know. I've been reading a lot about envy and jealousy and anger lately. And
is it helping?
What's that?
Is it helping?
It's giving me perspective. I won't go too deep.
Anger, or is it frustration? I think those are two different things.
Well, it depends. So oftentimes
being disappointed.
Well, that's part of the envy, right? Like, so sometimes it's the sadness, sometimes it's the anger that's on top or underneath. And it's one of those things where, the rule of reciprocity is that, when we do good deeds, we expect a good deed to be done for us. So that's why when people, do things, we give out these good deeds. And then when we expect them to do it for us, we get angry at them. Like, look, I did this for you, right? And it's kind of like, well, wait, what I'm reading says, well, what if you lean in and say, wow, you really did do that for them, and that did help them. And that's a good thing. And you take a moment and you realize the good you did helps to navigate away from the anger you might have. Or when I see this a lot in sales teams where, the top rep hits the top rep, and then, there's everybody else who's like, oh, Scott always wins the spiff, and Scott always gets this. And there's this anger, and underneath it, there's envy and jealousy. And if we just took the time to say, Scott, man, you keep winning this every month. Can I talk to you and just learn from you a little bit? If I lean into that.
But they're putting you against each other with sales compensation.
Yes, or whatever. To a certain extent, everybody has the same opportunity. I mean, a spiff is different. I get it. But it doesn't even have to be spiff related. It's the same thing in life. Oh, so-and-so got that new car, right? It's kind of that, what's really underneath this entitlement praise we've been throwing around for the last 5 years, right? And so anyway, so is it helping? Scott, it's giving me perspective, and it's giving me a moment to think. But, I've been thinking a certain way for, years. Like, it ain't easy to unwind that shit.
You read The Go-Giver by Bob Burg?
No, I have not.
Similar to what you're saying. Look, do things because you can help people, and it's the right thing to do, and you can do it.
Yeah.
And things will happen.
Yeah, I'm reading The Laws of Human Nature, Robert Greene, which is very Machiavellian, right? He did the 48 Laws of Power, and this one's even worse because it talks about narcissists and the different types of narcissists and what do you do when you have a narcissist, and how are you narcissist and all this stuff. So that's where this stuff is coming from. That's where this envy, jealousy stuff is. So.
Don't you find that most of the stuff you read is either common sense or stuff you already kind of know, but you need someone to tell you?
Most of it is stuff that I think like it's the same thing that we do like as a sales trainer or go to market. A lot of times it's just validating what I've always believed, and it gives me enough reinforcement to go, I can sink my teeth into that now.
Yeah.
And I think
the art for me is hearing something phrased in a particular way that finally clicks and causes me to do something about it. Yeah. It's not that I've never heard of it before or thought of it before. It's just like, that made tons of sense, and it was simple or relevant to me in the way the story was told. And all of a sudden it's like, I get it now. Yeah. All right. That's what I find.
It's the Obi-Wan effect.
That works. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. It's like
I know. Yeah. I already knew that was true. But this person articulated it in such a way that was like, wow, that was awesome. Yep. And now I'm going to take action. And I think that's the art of it all. Well, we've got to move towards the end of the show here, Matt. We appreciate you spending some time with us. We like to end every show by saying, how can we be helpful to you? Do you have any questions for us?
Yeah, I'm always curious about, I don't take I don't take no for an answer. It's more no right now, but I also don't take silence for an answer. How do you handle that as far as how long? I say I don't ever end it. I'm always going to keep going back, but how do you space out, as far as pushing something? How do you handle stuff like that? I know the answer is Scott. He'll just walk away from it. But if you're not going to, let's say you're not going to, what's because you never know when the right time is. Even when someone tells you, hey, get back to me in June, that doesn't mean that's when you should have gotten back to them. They'll say, oh, I wish you would have gotten in touch with me 2 weeks ago. And you're like, well, you told me, to call in June. And the other thing is, when you call people, I think that we should call people out on their bad behavior, but then you're the asshole. So how do you do that without being the asshole?
I'll let Richard answer the first question, and I'll try to answer the second.
I was kind of hoping I could answer the asshole question because I don't worry about being the asshole. All
right, well, let's switch then. Let's switch then. I'll answer the first one.
No, I've got a real answer for the first one.
I don't worry about being the asshole, but I just think people will look at you like you shouldn't have done that, even though I think it's more helpful than not.
I think there's a couple things I would say. So one, in your original conversations with people, being able to say, look, if this is never a good fit, just tell me. And likewise, I'll tell you, you won't offend me. I literally say this on every first sales call I have. And then that draws a line in the sand so that when they do go dark, I think that's what you're asking about when they said they want to talk, right? So then I can say, well, I haven't heard from you in so much time. And when we first spoke, we said we'd let each other know. Can you let me know if that's on to the one about, call me back in June or call me back after the first of the year, right? There are a couple of them. One is to call them out on it professionally and say, do you really want me to call you in the first of the year? Because I will. But if you're just telling me that to get off the phone, I won't. I don't need to waste your time. But I make it about their time, even though I know it's about mine. The other thing I'll do, I don't do this for January. I do this for other months. If they say, well, call me back in June. Great. Can I reach out to you the middle of May so we could set something up in June? So now I just bought myself a couple of weeks early. Because if I know I talk to them in June, I know I'm not talking to them until August because July is going to come and summer and they're blowing me off. And it gives me a way to sort of check them of like, oh, no, don't call me mid-May, call me in June. Okay, well, now they just recommitted to me calling them in June. They've said it twice now. So my belief is that subconsciously they'll remember that so that when I reach out to them again and say, hey, per our conversation, you said to talk now, which of these days and times work for you? And then the last thing is, I do think you have to cut bait. At some point, you just cut bait and you go find the next thing. And You're 2 years into this business, Matt?
I'm more than that. Yeah.
Okay.
I've been all in 3 years.
Okay.
Problem for
So
me is it's not that I might have the wrong person and not even know I have the wrong person. That's another issue.
So the other thing I can say in my business, I don't know about yours, is people always come back to me. Just about, I would say 50% of the people I talk to, or the people I talk to who don't buy, 30 to 40% come back within like 2 years. Yeah. They need some advice. I said something they like. They're at a new place. That's the nature of my business. So I just kind of know it's going to come back around. I've been doing it for 10 years, and there's enough of a pattern for it that it's not like a one-off. So that's sort of how I see it.
So that's why I push stuff out, because it's just, I got to focus on the ones that I think the people who are responding, reward people for being responsive to you and who have shown interest.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Scott, you're up.
Well, I follow up with people only kind of in the short term. So if I haven't heard from you and I've tried to follow up a couple times, for me, I just kind of move on, like you said, and I wait for them to come back to me, or I'll follow up with them in like 6 months. I'm pretty good about checking up with people every 6 months to see what's going on. But I'm not about like chasing people down. I just don't care. And it just frustrates me. And so I'd rather just be like, okay, it's not working out for whatever reason. I'm going to move on. I got to focus on other things.
Yeah.
As far as the like be an asshole part for calling people out, I don't really think that is ever the case if the delivery is done in the right way. You can soften the language with every critique, suggestion, criticism, whatever you want to call it. You can soften it in such a way that it feels like a coaching moment, a teaching moment, or hey, I'm just trying to be helpful to you, right? I might say, hey, Matt, I'm going to look at your logo real quick. I'd be like, hey, Matt, have you ever thought about like changing the color of the red? It's like a little bit bright. Have you ever thought about that before? Maybe that's my subtle way of being like, dude, that red is like way too blinding, and it reminds me.
That's to me, that's construct. It's orange, by the way. I'm talking about.
I'm colorblind. So what do I know? The point is like you can soften the language, I think, to call people out on whatever you want to call them about, so they don't feel attacked and they feel that it's helpful. And I think if you do that the right way, you're not an asshole.
I mean, like someone posted, and you see this all the time, like, oh, you need to be a connector and this and that. And this is the same person who won't reply to you. They won't get on a call. They won't do anything. And all they post about is how they want to help. And then all their other people say, yeah, this person's the best. And they do that. It's that's the type of stuff I'm talking about.
Yeah, that one, I wouldn't do anything with that really publicly, but, I think if I ever had the chance to engage with that person, I'd probably ask, what's the story?
Yeah.
And I'd probably, if I was asked by other people, what's this person like? I'd probably say the truth. I'd be like, well, they position themselves this one way. That has not been my experience. It doesn't mean that they're not that way with other people, but that is not the way that my interactions with them have been.
Yeah. I have about a handful of people that are very, I guess, popular or influential. That's the answer I give. It's not the experience I have with them.
Yeah.
But that doesn't.
I think that's okay. In terms of an answer, I don't think that makes you sound like an asshole at all. I don't think that it is painting them and saying like they are not actually who they pretend to be. They're just not that way with me for whatever reason. And I think that's okay. And then let everybody else come to their own kind of conclusion. So
even the reviews, I don't go by reviews because everyone thinks differently about different things. Maybe that a bad day, who knows? So
yeah. Well, we appreciate you spending time with us, Matt, on the Surf and Sales podcast. Maybe we'll see you one day at the Surf and Sales Summit. Once again, we've got tickets available November 27th to December 1st of this year. And we will see you all next time on the Surf and Sales podcast.
Thanks, Matt. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.